Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in. Welcome, everybody, to USA Global TV and Radio. This is the Business Talk Show. My name is al.cini, and as always, I'm just pleased to co-host this program with Dr. JACALYN KERBECK. Dr. JACALYN, welcome to your show.
Hi, Al. How are you?
I'm good. I feel pretty good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I told you backstage, Wednesdays are back-to-back. We have 8 shows today, and every show is just exciting, informative, educational. Sometimes there's some entertainment, and I'm just grateful to be here.
And you've got a great guest lined up today, too. I know we spent a little bit of time talking with Jennifer-Woodbeck, who's going to be joining us in a minute. Financial planning, and she's got an interesting history in healthcare that feeds all that informs that work that she does. It'll be fun to talk to her about that.
Absolutely. Al, it's an amazing situation. I know for myself with 3 autoimmune diseases, working in corporate America for most of my career up until 2 years ago when I retired, I'm doing this. I never even thought about healthcare because I had great coverage through my employer. And then when I went out on my own, started 2 businesses, and I looked at the price of healthcare, I was like, okay. Plus you have to pay for, I have a biologic that I inject, and it's a fortune. And you just don't think about these things. You literally could go broke while you're sick. So 2 things at the same time.
You look at how much it costs to get whatever platinum plan. And then you look at all the things it doesn't cover, and you think, well, how much more do I have to spend to get coverage for those things? And that's why it'll be fun to talk to Jennifer about gold, tin, platinum. I'm not sure what those plans are anymore and how they work.
Rusted.
Yeah.
So Al, I have a question for you. You've been in business for a number of years, and you've had to pay for your own health care, obviously, for all this time. What kind of changes have you seen as time's gone on in terms of health care?
Well, I can tell you this as a senior member of the family. The Dr. JACALYN USA Global TV and Radio family is a senior member. A miraculous thing happened when I suddenly qualified for Medicare. And, I'm basically a conservative, whatever that means, mostly libertarian. So I tend to believe that people ought to take care of their own stuff and that you shouldn't rely on government for everything. But when it comes to the subject of healthcare, I have to tell you, up until I was on Medicare, it was like a kid's game, like Chutes and Ladders, or Piggly Wiggly. It was a crazy game where you roll the dice and you move your space and you draw a card and you get a terrible disease and there's no coverage for it. You go back 3 spaces. That's what I remember. And then I qualified for Medicare, and all of that changed for the better. I mean, it really did make a difference. So any kind of a plan that has a predictable cost and a broad range of coverage. I mean, I agree with the people who believe that it's barbaric, that when you're at your most vulnerable, and especially if you live alone, you have to go through what everybody needs to go through to pay for the medical solutions that they need in order to get out of the problem they're in. There ought to be a better way, but until there's a better way, it's good to have experts like Jennifer-Woodbeck around to help us navigate it all.
Absolutely. And just along that whole game thing, I remember from when I was growing up, we had a game called Operation. Do you remember that?
I remember that game.
Where you stick the tweezers. That's what I feel like the system's like today. Hey, you want some coverage? How's that feeling in your wallet?
In fact, the doctor who was working on me at the hospital a couple of months ago, I saw him practicing on the Operation game in the other room. I don't think I was supposed to see that.
Oh my gosh, you make it so hard. Well, I want to give just a quick story and then we'll bring Jennifer out. So I have this prescription for Dupixent, which is for facial eczema. And long story short, I have a prescription from a doctor at pen. And of course, I don't live in Pennsylvania anymore. So during the pandemic, I tried to get it refilled and I was told, we're really sorry, but you haven't been in the office, so we can't refill it. So I was really stuck. So I went to see another doctor. And of course, that took several months. In the meantime, my facial eczema was all over the place. Long story short, after I finally see the doctor who writes the prescription, then you have to literally go through a song and a dance with the insurance company. Then you have to talk to the company, to their nurses, to their loyalty team, to this and that. A person would have just given up. But because of the way I am.
A sick person, I mean, if you've got no support at all, no help, it's just you and you're alone and you've got to deal with all that. I mean, that's a pretty horrifying situation to find yourself in. I think we all need help, especially in that area now and then.
Well, without further ado, okay, because we need Jennifer-Woodbeck here. Let's bring her out. Jennifer, welcome.
Jennifer-Woodbeck.
Hello. How is everyone?
It's so nice to meet you. I was looking over your LinkedIn profile, and I know we're talking about healthcare coverage, and that's not necessarily what you do. I know that you're a financial planner, really, these days. That's your primary sweet spot. But you do have healthcare experience, and you know what we're talking about, don't you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, spent 20 years working in healthcare. I usually say I started when I was 3 because I like to think I'm younger than I am.
We'll take it. We like it.
Yeah.
Well, if you're coping with the financial aspects of providing healthcare for your family, and you don't have Medicare, you don't have a broad program that you could rely on. I mean, just trying to figure out how much money do I need to budget for, how much of a program do I need to have, for how much of a possibility do I need to cover? It's really all about managing risk, isn't it?
It sure is. And most people underestimate it, right? They underestimate what healthcare actually costs. So it really is a struggle. And, I'll say like anything, like groceries these days, everything has a price to it and it's going up and up and up. So you need someone that has the experience to guide you in the right direction to it.
Even in Medicare, even if you're covered with the big program, there's a prescription on my list of medicines that I need to take now that is about $400 a month.
Yeah.
And that's what I pay. If I didn't have any insurance coverage at all, it'd be more like $3,700 a month.
For sure.
I think so. I think it's easy to overlook those possibilities and contingencies. You're reluctant to plan for them because you assume that's never going to happen to you. Mm-hmm. And when it does happen to you, a big chunk of your resources are eaten up by that. How do you help families take care of that? How do you help families prepare for eventualities like that?
Yeah, you know what? It's difficult and hard for a lot of families to wrap their head around. Like you said, no one ever plans to get sick, right? And when it happens sooner or later, how do you start looking at that? And so one of the big things I do in financial planning, because my 20 years of healthcare background, is what I call essentially planning for those rainy days. And you know what? If they don't come, then at least you've planned and you have money aside to enjoy other things. And you can use that money then. But too many people end up not planning and then run into debt and run into problems where they sell homes. They have to sell off their furniture. I say, sell your firstborn. You have to, make drastic changes just because someone didn't sit with you and plan properly. So it's a big epidemic. It really is hard for people to understand that.
Well, I'm going to ask you a question I already know the answer to. I mean, there are 2 reasons why I might want to call Jennifer-Woodbeck. One is that I'm worried that someday I might run out of money.
Right.
The other is, oh my God, I ran out of money. I need to call Jennifer-Woodbeck. Do you get both kinds of calls?
I do. Absolutely. Yeah. I get that call. I've run out of money. I want to retire in 2 years. I don't know if I can retire. I want to buy a house. How do I do that? And I want to, the markets are crazy everywhere. So I get all those calls. Sometimes they're calls that are at the end of the day going, okay, so now I'm sick. Now what? I'm like, well, there's a lot of different planning that goes for that. But,
so Dr. JACALYN, we've come to the right place today.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I do it all. The whole picture of it. We figure it out.
Good.
Jennifer, I want to call you for a third reason, which is I just got a huge windfall, or I won the lottery and I'm not even involved with the lottery. What should I do with this money? So as you know, talking about finances is not something that everyone is comfortable with, but you're the friendly finance coach. So what makes you different than others?
I like to say it's my red hair Irish personality, but I think it's just I I came from that background of healthcare. So my specialty in healthcare was chronic diseases and spending time with families and patients in their last few days or last few weeks or last year of life. And in that, I learned to listen and I learned to understand and I learned to handhold. And I think me being in finance now, that is the big component that's sitting across a desk or Zoom or streaming or whatever we do, that we've lost a bit of that. A lot of people that are, I'm going to say in the nicest possible way, that deal with money also don't handhold as much as they should. Money is close to people's heart. And so you need to have that personal touch. And if it means you get a phone call because they spent more than they wanted to, or they can't continue with their insurance or their Medicare or anything like that, well, then you need to listen. And so I'm the friendly finance coach because of the fact that I do spend the time actually listening and learning what their needs are.
That's great. And so I come to you with a portfolio of my income. What is it I can rely on every month or every week that I make by working or in an annuity maybe? Or and then I also bring to you what I'm invested in, my stocks and bonds, and I also bring to you my insurance.
Yes.
We talk about all three when we talk with Jennifer Woodbeck, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. The very first thing I do with everybody before we even get into, say, your statements or where your money's at, is I talk about goals. What is the next 1 year, 5 year, 10 years? What does retirement look like? I really want to know that personal approach first. So I want to understand, what are the big things you want to do? And then once we've covered what some of those are and get people hoping and dreaming again to do the things they want to do, then we start looking at those numbers and start looking at those statements and saying, okay, well, your insurance will cover you for this, or you don't have insurance for this, or your goal in 1 year may have to tweak to 2 years. Or maybe we look at it and say, okay, you are golden for retirement at age 55, or no, we need to bump that to 60. So the biggest part of it is really looking at what are those goals first and then jump into the numbers. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, I guess it does. And I can just tell talking to you that you're two people come in, the guy and the woman. Let's say the guy is going to be strictly about the business and all about the numbers, and the woman is going to be about making the family work and keeping the family together. And so if the woman is Queen Elizabeth and she's 60 years old and you tell her, in a couple of years, you're going to have to sell Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
How
do you come up with this?
Handle that news? I mean, how do you work that? How do you work that for these two people? I mean,
yeah, there's lots of conversations that happen. So it's funny you say that. Most of the time when I sit with couples, they are very far-fetched as what their dreams are for retirement. Someone might want to sit on the porch. The other one wants to travel the world, right? And it's not until we start having those conversations to see where people fit. And usually there's a happy medium. So we could get to that happy medium, maybe selling half of Buckingham Palace, not the whole thing, or sell the Buckingham Palace and live in the yards. I don't know. But we make it
work, right? Airbnb it.
Yeah. Or go to Kensington House instead. You go to one of the other ones. But we make it work because the whole idea is you have to be on the same page. Because if we're not on the same page with our goals as a relationship, and sometimes that means getting kids involved or getting adult kids involved. But if you're not on the same page, then you're not going to have the same financial structure. And that's also going to tear apart your financial house. So we need to start having those conversations to know where everybody's at.
Yeah. Excellent, Jennifer. A question I have for you is, people in general, depending on where you are in the world, are living longer. People want to live longer. People are living to 100, but we outlive our money. So when do we have to come to you and say, listen, I'm 50 years old. I'm planning to go to 120. What do I have to do today so that I can have money then?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things I look at with people when we're looking at where their money has to last, right? We look at two structures. We look at a couple. So one's financial and one's investment wise and one's insurance wise, because really we can start using some of that investment money, but we don't want to run out, right? So of course, let's just say you have your investment growing at 6% and we only ever take out 6% of that investment. Well, you're never going to run out of your principal. So you're going to always have that base money there. But if that doesn't fit for what your needs are, then we also look at that insurance. And there's some pretty neat insurance products out there that actually build wealth in them too, that you can take money out and still keep that insurance in place. So we look at both structures to see what fits for the needs so that you don't run out of money. And then if you do, then we figure out how do we have some other things in place. I never want to sell your house, but sometimes we have to have honest conversations about, do you need the 10-bedroom house still for one person? Or do we start looking at moving that money somewhere else and then using some of the interest you're growing instead of just using the amount that you have saved? So there's some fancy structures we do to make sure people understand their options, along with how do we put it all in place. And we just reset it. Year after year, I meet with all my clients again, and we reset what's happened, and we see what something new, something changes, or everything's good. We're gonna check year after year anyway.
Oh, okay. So
Thank you.
before our viewers in Texas got all worked up about calling Jennifer to ask them about their ask her about their finances, you're in Ontario, Canada.
I am, yes.
But your clients could be anywhere in Canada, I'm assuming.
Yeah, for sure. So with that too. So my coaching, my financial coaching, financial planning part of it is, anywhere globally. To hold a license, insurance and investments to invest structures for people, you need to be licensed in that state. So I am not licensed in every single state. I am licensed in most of the provinces in Ontario, but I can still help direct people in a way that I have great connections around the world to help connect them with somebody that can then take those structures and put them in place. So even though I can't do the official investing part maybe in that state, I can still send them some direction on where to go once we come up with a plan.
Oh, great. So anybody listening, watching could call and ask, no matter where they are. You may not be able to directly help them, but you're offering your advice and probably and a very friendly shoulder to cry on and ear to listen, which is really valuable for people when they're talking about their finances. That's terrific, Jennifer. Great.
Jennifer, for people on the radio, they're not able to see you, obviously, but you have a number of awards behind you. Tell us about them.
Thank you. I appreciate you asking. You can only see probably half of them across here. My office has walls and cabinets full of them over the last 4 years. So I'm proud of my awards. So I've just actually earned quite a few things, because what I always relate things back to within our companies are that, how many people have I helped? And it's not about, there's some ones that have some dollar values in there, but really what that relates to is how many families, how many people have I helped? And so I like to show some of the nicer ones, even though they do have dollar signs to them, because that means I outworked other people. I helped more families. I helped more people get financial structures. And it just, again, shows me how far I've come in 4 years. And the reason I started in this business was because my husband and I didn't know all these concepts and strategies. And we'd bought and sold houses. We had 2 kids. We thought we were all good until someone sat down with us. And when I saw what we were missing, I thought, you know what, I need to be the person that goes out and shows everybody else that I come in contact with how to set up some things or how to learn more about finances. So so those ones behind me are kind of my VIP awards. They're all wonderful, but these are my VIP awards because they're the ones in the last few years that show I've just continued to help people.
Brilliant. Congratulations on that.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And also as a follow-up, people may not be aware that there's a lot of work that goes into getting licensed. There's a lot of education that you have to take and be on top of. Talk to us about that, if you would, please.
Yeah, for sure. So in Ontario, I'm in Canada. So in Ontario, there are a few things we do. So here in Canada, it's called the LLQP. So it's the life license course. It was one of the things that I took to be able to help people when it comes to that point of actually putting investments and insurances in place. But before that, I had also done my coaching. So I did a coaching course, which was over a few weeks, then, practiced and trained with other people for a few months. And so I became an executive business coach. So started off in the world of healthcare, and during that healthcare process became an executive business coach and personal life coach along with it. So I had the luxury a few years ago when I did leave healthcare to mesh my 2 passions outside of healthcare together. So that life and executive coaching along with the financial world, and that all developed into my company being the Friendly Finance Coach. So a nice mesh of everything that I like to do.
Yeah, that's while it may take an awful lot of work and a lot of time to be licensed in helping people manage their money, it takes no education whatsoever to lose your money. People are able to do it pretty quickly without any training at all. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because a lot of the people who come on this program, you don't have to be smart to lose your money. You can be dumb and do that. Yeah. A lot of people who come on our program complain or mention that there's very little education in the public schools about how to manage money. I mean, they just don't cover that. So you go through 16 years of grade school, if we count college in that, when you're out of it, and even in college, they don't talk about it. When you're out of it, now all of a sudden you've got to not do the dumb things that cause you to be totally jammed up and unable to retire until you're 165. So of those really, really bad misconceptions that people have about what I ought to be doing with my money, what are some of the biggies that people really need to think about?
It's funny you mention that, because that was one of my biggest things. I have two boys. They are 14 and 10, so they're in that grade school system. And that's one of the things that I realized that, I didn't remember learning anything about money in school, but now I know for sure they don't learn anything about money in school. And that's one of the biggest things that, they learn what a quarter looks like, but what do you actually do with it? What's the value of it? And I think my biggest takeaway, that when I'm doing coaching with people right now, the biggest takeaway is that because of COVID and so many things going cashless, we have lost that ability to have an emotional component to cash. And it is so easy now to order things online, to just tap your phone somewhere. People don't even have to dig into their wallet to pull out a card to use. They just tap their phone and they go. And so when we start to lose that emotional component of what the value of cash is, then we overspend, or we're just frivolously sending it off without actually paying attention. And so until we can revert back to what is the meaning of cash again, we're not going to really understand where that disconnect is. And so part of my coaching I do is, I get people to track, where did you spend money this week? I don't want you to make any changes, just track where you spent money this week. And most of the time it's an eye opener. They didn't realize how many times they just tapped and go. And when they start realizing I spent this much money, or maybe I didn't have to spend this much money this week, that starts to reconnect that value. And, I grew up in a world where my dad said cash is king. He always had cash in his pocket. That's the only thing he ever paid. And so for him, it was hard when, as things have transitioned to be cashless, my dad had to get he had a credit card, but never used it. Hates putting things on credit cards. But like for students, as you mentioned, you go to university, college, whatever it is, there's someone standing there at registration trying to sign you up for credit cards. And you can't do anything without a credit card these days. So yeah, it's an interesting system we're in.
Okay, I got a story I need to tell you both because it's going to be shocking and appalling. Are you ready for this? Because I was shocked.
Okay.
A close friend of mine has a daughter, and this close friend of mine was taking out the trash one day and picked the bag up out of the trash bin and heard a jingle. So she opened up the trash can and looked around inside and found change. Quarters, nickels, dimes. Turned out that for years, her daughter had been throwing away the change she was bringing back from the store because she said, I just can't be bothered with all of that. I just keep the paper.
Oh no.
Wow.
Seriously. And yeah, if she's listening, and then she's probably shocked and appalled because she's terribly embarrassed. I'm not mentioning names, but
put it in the chat, Al. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I'm going to chat it over to you. When I know we need to take a break, but I want to explore some more of the disconnect between the value of money and the experience of spending it that seems to cause people to run down a dead end at high speed and not realize they're there until the last minute. So when we come back after these messages with more of the Business Talk Show, we'll talk to money psychologist Jennifer-Woodbeck about how she counsels her patients on the whole subject of respecting the money. So back with more of the Business Talk Show after these messages.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The session that we had with BCAT was really entertaining and enlightening. We were able to put together some very specific steps that we as individuals can take, and it was really fun to all come together and see sort of where we're going as a team and how we can all get there together.
We had a tremendous experience with the BCAT partners. One of the challenges that we have as an organization is to make sure that we have the right people in the right chairs doing the right thing. To do that well, you have to have synergy. You can try to dream up ways to make sure that your group does that, or you can rely on experts. We would recommend BCAT partners to anybody who's looking to take their organization to the next level.
morning, everyone. My name is JACALYN. I'm a ballerina from Italy. After 2 years of waiting, finally I fulfilled my dream of learning etiquette. This learning process has become unforgettable for me. The patient and professional teachers have helped me to get a more comprehensive knowledge about etiquette culture. The British School of Excellence provided me the best way to live gracefully, respectful attitude, lighter mood, and heart, where our love is innocent. Thank you.
Meet the modern learner. Like most of us, the modern learner is short on time, on the go, and wants to learn on their terms and device of choice. The key is to meet them whenever and wherever they may be. The solution? Best-in-class content served up by the Engagement mobile learning platform, where the modern learner is at the center of the learning experience. For example, they can receive a text message that alerts them to a new learning module. They simply tap, watch, read and engage, or play a fun learning game. We transform your content into modules that are timely, accurate, academically rigorous, yet engaging and robust. Personality motivators are blended with modern adult learning principles to make it faster and more natural to absorb the content and have fun while learning. Our cutting-edge platform offers something for everyone. It can be an immersive experience where learners explore and engage based on what's relevant to them in that moment, or they can follow a set curriculum, earning badges and tracking points toward a credit or goal, or they can dive deeper into high-value professional content relating to their topic of interest. It's binge learning at its best. All this, along with an entire portfolio of real-time usable data and KPIs for stakeholders. Imagine, share up-to-the-minute news, enhance current curriculum, build knowledge banks, drive sales, and foster community in the push of a button. To learn more or see a demo, please contact support@engagement.com.
bad thing. And I know, Jennifer, that'd be a great reason to call you. So I wanted to say that. But I also saw you posted on LinkedIn that cold calling in the financial world is not dead.
Yes.
And you have a YouTube video about it. I haven't had a chance to see the video, but how is it cold calling works? Talk about that.
Sure. It does. That's what I think. It actually does work. You know what? One of my favorite sayings, which sometimes you have to think about, is you don't know what you don't know until you don't know. So really, people are struggling more and more and more. And as much as people think, you have all your ducks aligned, or there's no holes in your boat, or whatever analogy you want to use, you don't know. And so until you actually have someone sit with you and just go through a few things, you're going to find out when you're in trouble. And I don't want anyone to ever find out when they're in trouble. So you know what? It takes a few minutes. And I don't mind cold calling people and saying, hey, here's what I do. This may or may not be for you at this moment, but here's my name and number if you want to review anything. Here's my name and number that you might meet somebody else that actually needs that information. So there is nothing wrong with cold calling. My mission is bigger than myself. And that mission is just to help more people and know more people so that I'm here when they need me.
That's great. And how does that start? I guess that starts with me calling you and we have a conversation. And when do you start billing me, or when do I start paying money for your advice?
Great question. So typically what happens is usually I do a first initial, kind of consultation, see where things are at, talk to you a little bit about whether or not it's something, that you have goals and dreams, or if there's something that's maybe it's too over my head that I can help you, but I might know other people that can. So typically an initial, 15, 20-minute conversation, I can get a lot out of that from you, and you get an idea of whether or not you want to work with me. And then I usually go through, I'll say, a second appointment to say, here's the things we're going to work on. And I'm going to give you homework on a weekly basis, and you need to be accountable to yourself. I'm no one's mother, so I don't want to be your mother. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. I'm no one in my client's mother. I'm my kid's mother. But you have to be ready to do the work too. And if people aren't ready to do the work, well, then that's okay. We just end that partnership. If you're ready to do some work to figure where things are at, then we start talking about fees and where things are at to make sure that, we're on the same page. And at the end of the day, it's about that client or that person getting to where they want to be, getting to those dreams and goals. That's the most important part.
Jennifer, thank you for sharing that. I have a question. When you were talking about the emotional connection to money and how it's lost, something that came up for me is, especially since I started my own business, there's so many subscriptions that I am required to pay for this, that, and the other, that I don't even, the money's there, the money's gone, the money's there, the money's gone. And I started looking at all the things that I pay for. I pay for a certain radio subscription so that I can have so many channels. Well, the car's been sitting on the driveway for 3 weeks. I don't even drive anywhere, but yet I keep paying it because it's what am I going to miss when I get in that car and I can't have those channels? And I think a number of us do that. It's like, something's on this Netflix or whatever it is. I pay and I pay and I pay. We don't even use it. So what's your counseling in those areas for all of these things that we keep paying for, even though we're not using them?
Great question.
Yeah, great question. So typically when I look at that, we look at where, I do a bill, I have this called a hierarchy of bills. And so we go through it the first time, just writing out everything that you currently pay. So even if it's a car payment, a credit card payment, loans, lines of credit, subscriptions, all that stuff. And we go through it. I just want you to brain dump them all. Then what we start doing is we start prioritizing them. So, that car payment is probably the one that's on the top of the list. That mortgage payment, that rent payment are probably at the top of the list. And it's when you get to those ones like Spotify, I love these things, I'm not downgrading them, but Netflix, Spotify, the radio stations, whatever the other ones are that you have, how much of those are priority for you? Or would a nice dinner out be a bigger priority? So where can you fit and start making some changes? And usually when people start looking at those smaller things, that maybe it's only $14 a month, but that $14 a month over years and years and years and years adds up, right? Where that could also be put into an illness protection or a savings account or an investment that grows if you're not utilizing that system as much. So some of it just starts to look at, the nitty gritty of your priorities for your future based on what's going on right now.
That's great. I can think about, actually, that was a terrific question, Dr. JACALYN, because I wondered about that myself. You look at your bill at the end of the month, and these are checks you didn't even write, but it's money that's gone because you subscribed to something. And I think that is another great example of people becoming detached in a way from the value of the money. When you don't subscribe to everything on the same day, they all feel like one-offs, and they don't feel like, oh my God, when these all come in, it's $500 or $600 a month, and it really can add up.
Yeah.
But
and I often say,
I want to make sure. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
I often say to people, it doesn't have to be a no forever, right? Like you talked about, can you put things on pause? Can you just say no for right now and say, okay, well, if I get this straightened out for the next 6 months, I'll start that subscription again in January, or I'll start that subscription again next summer. Or I really, really want Netflix. If COVID happens again and we're in lockdown, well, then start it again then. But do you need it if we're all going back to school and work in September? So like you can prioritize some things based on what's going on in your life and cut out some of the things you don't need, right? But we pay for things because these great companies set up these annual subscriptions because they make good money at it, and we may not use it as much. So where can we shift that a little bit?
Okay, and also we'll get to taxation, because Canadian taxation is kind of a mystery to me. But I understand American taxation really, really, really well. And I think there are a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
But before we get to taxes, customers for you, clients who come to you could be individuals, they could be families. How about businesses? Do you work with businesses?
I do a little bit less on I'll say the big corporate, like, big 50 people plus businesses, a little less, more so in Canada, a little bit less. But you know what, building up that framework for people, especially small businesses, looking at, a couple business owners that are trying to figure out where can we make some changes, or where is money flowing? I like calling it money flow. Where is that going and what's happening? Hey, a second set of eyes at it, or a third or fourth set of eyes being mine are a good thing.
And that gets me to my question about taxes, because whether you're in Canada or the United States, if you're an employee, the tax structure is kind of imposed on you, and your employer takes care of a lot of it. But if you're a business owner, especially a new business owner, you can operate for a year, and then all of a sudden at the end of that year realize, oh my God, I don't get to keep all this. I have to give a lot of this to other people, or they come to me with guns to get it.
Yeah.
You help those people, don't you?
I do, for sure. So when we start looking at some of those structures, looking at like corporate insurance structures, or we look at, I'll say legal ways, because they're not illegal, but legal ways to actually have corporations and have insurances through corporations that they can pay you out dividends differently. So looking again, I still stick to the same structures of what are the goals of your business. And if you have 2 or 3 people that are shareholders in it, what are the goals, or what will happen if one person is no longer in the business, or one person passes away? And so there's different ways of making that work that can be tax saving, but also protective strategies if no longer someone's around. So there's similar personal as there are business. We go through the same framework as some of it. It just means we're talking about a corporation, or we're talking about business specific, rather than just that individual or family.
Partnership insurance, ERS and emissions insurance. I mean, there are a lot of things that a small business person can overlook, and if they don't have them and something happens, they can end up in a tough situation. Great to know they can call you.
Yes.
Good.
Something I just wanted to touch on again about the subscriptions, because I felt privy to this, is especially with technology. I love technology. Try this, do that. We won't bill you for 30 days. We won't bill you for 10 days. And then you put the card in because they're not going to bill you, and you forget. Yes. You forget, then you get the bill. You don't even know what it's for. You're not even using it. So I've done that. So you have to be careful about that.
Yeah. Put a notification in your phone. When is that 30 days? If you say yes, I say people, if you say yes to anything, go put it in your calendar in your phone, because that's the first thing that's going to alert to you. So, and don't do it the day of. You got to do it a couple days before. So if it's, the 3rd of August, put it in your phone for the 1st of September. So you have a couple days warning.
So now we know where that million people who dropped off of Netflix last quarter came from. They're people who called Jennifer and said, I'm running out of money. I don't know why. And so you asked them, well, what do you watch on Netflix anyway? And they say, well, really nothing. Next thing you know, a million of them are off Netflix. And
like, you don't need Netflix for the summer, do you? We'll come back in October. That's okay.
Yeah. Wait till there's something good on and then go back. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, you're too funny. So, Jennifer, what would you like people to take away from the show today?
Oh, great question. I have a million takeaways in my brain running through because this has been a great conversation. But I think really the biggest takeaway is really start having that connection to your money again. So, looking at where am I spending, or even just what am I doing with it? Because like I said, we don't have that connection. We spend, that $2 coffee can be a $2 coffee plus I'll just grab a muffin because you don't even think about what that means. But, getting back to that point where, take the app off your phone that's a connect just to that because you always have it in your hand, and start pulling out your card again, or start pulling out cash. Just starting to have that money connection is really going to help with self-awareness of what you're doing. And I think that's, I'll say, the first baby step of understanding what's happening, because nobody wants to open that credit card or open their bank statement or get an alert on their phone that they're down to their last dollars or shocked by, oh, I spent that much this month. So really, we just need to be more aware.
Wow. Great.
Great takeaway. Thank you. And what's the best way to get in touch with you, and who would you like to contact you?
Perfect. I would, my email is probably the easiest. There is a contact me form on my website too, but email is usually the easiest. I will say it goes to my phone, so I usually see it right away. And then, anyone, I'll say, that's struggling to see if they're doing the right thing is always a great conversation. But hey, like you said, if you come into a lot of lottery money, or you don't, just anyone that's really interested in seeing how to make some advances in their life to understand their money better, understand what's going on with their life. We all have things that come up that we don't expect. So let's just make sure you're not in a sticky situation when those things come up.
Brilliant. And also, Jennifer, if you can say what the email address is for people on the radio who can't read it.
Yeah, absolutely. I forgot we're on radio too. So my email address is friendly finance coach. So FRIENDLY, it's a long one, financecoach@gmail.com. And my website is the same, friendlyfinancecoach.com. And you can find me and more about me on all of those.
Great.
Thank you so much. And this was a great interview. I learned a lot.
That was
Perfect.
Do come back and see us on this or any of our other 28 live weekly shows. All right.
Great meeting you. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you. Great meeting you guys.
Thank you, Jennifer. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
I really learned a lot from her, Al.
Made a lot of mental notes.
I know.
Not all the happy kind, a few depressing kinds. One is, what am I watching on Netflix? Answer nothing. I'm going to dump that. I'm not necessarily recommending that for everybody. But you're right. You were absolutely right. There are so many of us that are hemorrhaging in small amounts. We don't realize how much blood we're actually losing until we look at it at the end of the year. You want to get on top of that. I think it's great advice from Jennifer, and a great person to call. By the way, I found Jennifer very easily on LinkedIn. Jennifer-Woodbeck Thompson is the name that she uses, I think, on LinkedIn. So easy to find. Just do a search there and get connected with her. Great person to get to know.
I didn't even want to say this when she was here on the screen with us. She can hear us backstage. But during the pandemic, I would say the first 2 years, I moved and I was living somewhere where my local, the bank is on the East Coast, I guess, in just certain places, and they didn't actually have a branch. So for 2 years, I had a $100 bill and a 10, and that was it. That was the only cash that I had. Everything was card related or order online. Yeah. And I started thinking about it. Wow, this is a strange feeling because it's so easy. You just now, like to her point, you just take your card and you put it on top of this thing and you don't even, it's all like Houdini.
If you know that going out to dinner, especially these days, is going to cost you maybe $200 if you're going out with friends or, with a life partner. When you know that, then adding it up, I can't do that more than once a week or once a month even. That's it. And if you were mindful of it, so Dr. JACALYN, at least you were aware of that. But an awful lot of people just whip out the card and they don't know that they're in trouble until the card gets declined.
Right, exactly.
And then they take another card because they have usually a deck of them.
Pick a card, any card.
Yeah.
When I worked in corporate for my whole career, there was a paycheck every 2 weeks. And, as a business owner, you've got to scratch and claw for a penny. So your friends her daughter was throwing away the coins. Where does she live so I can go and collect that trash myself of the coins?
Uber driving at $5 a gallon is a little different from Uber driving at $2 a gallon. So yeah, I mean, these are and that's a whole other level of mindfulness that a small business owner needs to wrap their heads around. And it's just great to know that there's a coach you can call, somebody that you can talk to. Maybe you don't have any other. It's confidential information. Sometimes you want to know you're talking to somebody who can maintain that confidence.
Absolutely. And I really like her personality. She's very easy to speak with, and she listens. By the way, they don't teach that in school either, right? You know how I feel about listening.
Obviously she could be one of your professors.
She could, for sure. Yeah. I agree.
Good.
Well, this has been another fun show, my friend. Thank you again. I do want to announce that you and I will be hosting the USA Global TV and Radio reunion show, which is happening on September the 18th. We'll be live streaming for 6 hours. Will you be wearing your tuxedo?
I will be wearing something appropriate to the circumstances and time. I haven't decided yet what, but yes.
Well, because your tuxedo is probably too big now because you've lost so much weight.
Could very well be. I don't fit in the old clothes. I'm going to have to get something for this occasion. That's Sunday, September 18th, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m.
To 5 p.m. So we can accommodate our friends across the globe for the different time zones. The way it works is each person gets 15 minutes to promote themselves. We're not interviewing them, Al, right? They're promoting their business, their work, whatever it is they want to promote.
Yeah, you're telling me that because it's very hard for me not to at least ask one question.
And I'm like, Al, we're way behind. That's
Come on, Al.
We could just go to 6 or 7 Eastern time.
I may treat time the way a lot of people treat money, and I apologize for that. But yes, we're not interviewing them. It's all about them, really, and that's kind of key.
And it's not our first one either. I think this is our third.
That's your third. I couldn't make the last one, but this one
right.
I'm all signed up for.
You're second,
and I made the first one, which was great.
Yes, so fabulous. Al, I'm going to spotlight you. Please do tell people about the other work you do on television, which is where I met you, and also about what you're doing at BCAT.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. JACALYN, of course, and always a great opportunity. One of the programs that I host on rvntelevision.com is a program called The Advocates. I co-host that program with Mark Iorio and Lisa Manioki every Wednesday at 10 a.m., and it's live streamed every Wednesday at 10 a.m. And we focus on the people who do many of the things that Dr. JACALYN's circle of friends and associates do, which is good things for people and making a difference in people's lives. And that is kind of a sweet spot for us, and results in great stories. And it's a lot of fun. And so I do that every Wednesday at 10 o'clock. I wanted to promote that, rvntelevision.com. Also, we are now pretty sure that we're going to be calling our workshop, the team building workshop based on brand and culture alignment. We're pretty sure we're going to be calling it Pro Fit for Teams. And there's a reason for that. I'll explain when I do my first Talking Heads, which hopefully is coming up in a week or two on USA Global TV. And I'll explain where that idea came from and what it means. And the whole point of it is to provide a team building experience that stretches over, actually fits inside of a half a day. Could be delivered either virtually or in person. Takes the people in an organization and gets them to fall in love with the work that the organization does, to remember the why that brought them all together in the first place, and bring that back to life in a way that engages everybody at every level, regardless of rank. So whether you own the company or you mop the floors and answer the phones, everybody's voice is equally important. Everybody's opinions are equally valid. Everybody participates in answering the question, who are we when we're doing our best work on our best day? It's fun, and you get great actionable results that help sustain the transformation ongoing when it's all finished. So that's to get a hold of me for that. It's al.cini, al.cini at getbcat.com.
Thank you, al.cini. I appreciate it. It was fun having this show today, and I look forward to seeing you.
Thank you, DR JACALYN. It's always a pleasure talking with you.
And I'm glad you mentioned about Talking Heads. We're excited to have you come back.
I'm looking forward to it. I really am. I think I've got a lot to say this time, too. I had a lot last time.
You
But
always have a lot to say because you're a pillar of strength.
Even, you know, I have to say, Jennifer Woodbeck would make a terrific talking head on the subject.
She would. She'd make a great guest on RVN television as well.
She would. And so, okay, let's just get this all worked out. I know Jennifer is still backstage. I can see.
Let's bring her back out.
Through this. So, Jennifer, I just connected with you on LinkedIn. Accept my connection request. Send me a directed message, and I'll give you the instructions on how to sign yourself up.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it'd be great to have you part of the end.
All right, fantastic.
Dr. Jacqueline will tell you all about how to become one of her talking heads.
Perfect.
I definitely will. We have to close out for now because the men are waiting for the men's show, which is called Wild at Heart, Bonfire Talks, real, authentic, uncut. So we're saying goodbye from the business show. Please do stay with us for the men's show, then the women's show. A Woman's Prerogative is afterwards. And then Mariska Dupree joins us from New Zealand for her Talking Heads episode. All right. We're saying goodbye. Bye, everyone.
Thanks again, Jennifer.
Thanks, Jennifer. Bye.
Bye now.